This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Alrighty then. Good morning, good afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's live podcast series, The Weekly Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time, click subscribe, like, share, and comment. Now, stay tuned next week as we will have on Gloria Haas. She'll be back on. We'll talk about the pros and cons of CE5 gatherings. What is CE5? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned. So, tonight, we're going to discuss the paranormal phenomena such as portals, parallel dimensions, which may include or exclude the existence of angels, demons, and extraterrestrials. Joining us tonight is Victoria Andersen, a paranormal mystic, memoir author, international motivational speaker, and course creator. During her lifelong spiritual journey, she has been led through these paranormal interactions. She is also the creator of Leap Into Your Story podcast, where she inspires others to write and publish their own book. Let's welcome to the show for the first time tonight, Victoria Andersen. How are you?
Doing well, Paul. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Wonderful to have you on. And you're in New Mexico right now, which might get some weird weather this winter.
Yes.
May not get some weird weather, but
well, just for the record, there's a lot of weird in New Mexico, and the weather is no exception.
There is. You're in one of the hot spots when it comes to the paranormal. So.
Yes.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this a little bit. Hence the name of our show. What is the paranormal realm trying to tell us? How did this all start? How did this all start for you? And how you got into this?
Well, it actually started. I originally did not believe in anything outside of the seen realm.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, there was these, I guess, awakening moments that triggered me to search. And I think a lot of people out there can relate to that. Hearing it from somebody else is completely different than experiencing it. And then you're trying to reconcile what you think you should think about things versus what you really are discovering about certain things. So it kind of started, I guess, in my mid-teens. And by my 20s, my early 20s in college, it was like this uptick, like something had just flipped a switch in me.
Yeah.
And, I went searching. And then I had the death of my mother really kind of almost made it a full-time searching because now somebody near and dear to me had died. And I wanted to be sure that one, she was okay. And two, what happens, in the afterworld, and this ability. And then I should mention that when I say awakening, I had a lot of psychic abilities kind of come on the scene.
Yeah.
But it came on like a fire hose.
Oh,
and it was nonstop. And, it was literally driving me crazy. And I had reached out to somebody for help, a trusted teacher who I knew was very deep into the occult, and said, what do you recommend? And he was like, well, did you just ask it to stop? I'm like, could it be that, simple? And he didn't quite understand because you know how much money and effort people go through to get where you're at, and you want to stop it. And I'm
Uh,
all, yes,
yeah. Now,
because
what was
yeah.
actually happening? Were you like hearing voices, was things moving
uh
around? And,
I mean, you've heard of the five Clairs, right?
yeah. Yep.
Well, having all the five Clairs all at once.
Mm,
So I was hearing things, visions flashing, feeling things. I couldn't be in a room without hearing all I guess, the mind chatter of
yeah.
people. And it didn't stop at night. There was no rest.
Did you ever think you were going crazy? Like,
I
what?
did.
Maybe I should
And
go see a
nobody,
doctor.
here's, I actually knew a couple of nurses and studying doctors. I didn't go to like a doctor,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I kind of bounced them at it, and they were like, I don't see the problem. That's just you.
Yeah.
Guess I
Yeah.
was natural born crazy, right? Um, but I went to the paranormal community to seek answers, and nobody was able to relate to me.
Hmm.
And so you're kind of stuck in, even the community that's in it and who does research couldn't provide answers.
Yeah. Now, the
And that's
information that was
a
coming
great
through
place
to
to
you
be,
that you
to
were,
be honest.
yeah, the information that was coming in to you that you were receiving, was this information for you, directly for you, or were they giving you information for other people?
I was just tuned into everything.
Yeah.
I'd go to the grocery store and I can hear the ladies, I should say, there was a lady in front of me. And I knew her husband had cheated on her, and I can feel that off of her.
Wow.
And it's like the guy. There was a guy who abused his wife. I was walking past him, and I got that image. No, I can't validate that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you turn around, and what's even weirder is people know, they
Mhm.
know. And that was another kind of a scary thing for me, because when you know people's secrets that they don't want you to know, you instantly can become their enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. People want to stay away from you. You go out in
Yes.
public and it's like,
Or
it's,
what they'll do is what I've had is like, attacks where people try to wreck your credibility.
oh yeah.
So if you were to ever disclose that or disclose your abilities, so that your credibility is gone. Like they tried to undermine that.
Huh.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a double-edged sword too, because if
Yes,
they try to wreck your credibility and stuff like that, but then at the same time, it's like what it's like it.
right.
And it's
And
like, okay.
instead of, yeah, exactly. Instead of saying, I need to heal that, I need to work through that, they're like, well, let me just keep it hidden.
Yeah. Mm. What has there been a time when you had to do that? You just try to bury it and just not go public with did that happen in the beginning, or did that
That
did that
was pretty much most of my adult life, to be honest.
yeah.
Uh, when I was led to the books, I realized, yeah, that's going to be hard to keep in the closet, right? Now, some people
Yeah.
around me, I didn't even tell my close friends.
Wow.
And sometimes I would blurt stuff out, and because I knew the information, and it would be, how did you know that? I haven't told anybody.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
Yeah. Especially, yeah, if you're getting information, because I was taught that too through, during mediumship classes and certifications, that, you have to get somebody's permission in order to, to give a reading or just any information. And it's like, but it's like, it's almost hard to do that. It's like you're
Yeah,
giving this you're getting this information, and you feel this dire need to deliver this, but still you
right,
have to go up to whether it's a stranger or a friend. It's like, hey, I I have some information for you, and I've been told to give it to you.
right.
You have can I would you like it? um
Exactly. I mean, that's how that is the ethical practice to conduct. But
yeah,
sometimes you don't know it. And with me, I found out that being in multiple dimensions, I've already experienced it. So
yeah,
when I'm in another dimension that it hasn't happened, and I blurt something out, they're like, "Oh, how'd you know I'm pregnant?" I'm like, "Oh, I was at the baby party in the shower in the, but in
yeah.
some other dimension, that it's already
Yeah,
happened." So that kind of those rules don't apply.
yeah,
Only
yeah,
and it's accidental. It's completely accidental, but
yeah,
that's part of what the paranormal is trying to tell us is that there's information around us all the time. Now, you don't have to necessarily go in another dimension for it,
yeah,
but it's all around. I mean, it's classified. One of the things that we chat a little bit is so much corruption of information.
yeah,
And one of the biggest things is throwing paranormal and certain, psychic abilities all into, the occult.
mhm,
By definition, the occult is hidden information. But that's the great irony. It's not hidden. It's all around us. We just
yeah.
need to tune into it.
It's like using the word conspiracy, which was invented by the CIA and FBI
Exactly.
just to confuse people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
The
or to
disinformation.
discredit. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
They call it disinformation, but what I've found over the last decade um, is that there's a lot of, I think, disinformation, misinformation plants to just keep that all corrupted.
yeah,
And then, like it says, if something hits my radar, I'm like, okay, the logical mind says yes, but the radar detector is going, no, something's wrong there. I need to go check it out.
yeah, yeah. Huh. Um, Now you use the word mystic. Why not psychic or empath or intuitive?
Well, I think that for me, as you mentioned, I have an assortment of paranormal experience. I haven't yet to meet somebody with my laundry list of type of paranormal encounters.
Yeah,
And with that, I think comes a great responsibility that goes beyond being put into like a psychic or an empath box. A mystic, there's a need to continuously search, because what I have found out just through my own journey is that old, outdated belief systems that were great in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, they certainly do not apply in 2022.
yeah,
But those are those were good back in the day, but we're probably not even in the same earth that we were. We call it, it's history,
yeah.
but really there's actually been an energetic shift in the planet, and it's been shifting. I'd say, I don't know, it's been kind of like this tug of war
Mm,
between, they call it, the dark earth and the light earth, and it's still in the mobile. It's still flexible. We
yeah.
But the part of the corruption of information is trying to pull it into the dark earth.
And especially with all this other different phenomenon out there, like we don't know what to trust. I mean, look at the Mandela effect.
Oh,
We had a show about that about a month ago, and we were talking about that, and that's kind of similar
mhm,
because when we experience that, it's like, okay, something got corrupted. It's almost like being in the
Yes,
Matrix. It's like,
exactly.
did that really happen or did it not really happen? So,
Yeah, and again, you can't trust your mind or your senses. You have to develop what I call the pinging of the inner radar,
yeah.
um, because you can have two people standing side by side, but depending on what reality they're in that space on the planet, they
Mhm.
can have totally different perceptions.
Yeah, yeah. Their perception of time and space is completely different. I mean, it
Exactly.
might look similar. What they see, what each person sees might be similar, but there's something that is completely different.
Exactly. And I did have one very defined moment where I knew either I had I was not myself, normal self that I had recognized in one dimension to another. I
Mhm.
woke up with blue eyes.
Wow.
I do not have blue eyes. And I looked in the mirror. I could not believe it. They were light blue eyes.
Wow.
And I took myself out to the natural light,
Yeah.
thinking, okay, it's kind of morning. I just, woke up. Maybe I'm still asleep. I looked outside in the natural light and I had blue eyes.
Huh. How long did that last? Did it
That lasted about 3 hours.
Wow.
But again, everything looked the same. I was
Yeah.
wearing the same clothes I went to the night before when I had my hazel eyes. My
Yeah.
dirty laundry was still there. Unfortunately, I would had whatever
Yeah.
dimension, I already have my laundry done.
Yeah.
But yeah, the everything else looked perfectly the same. I had blue eyes.
Huh. Now, what do you think what this was? That you shifted into another dimension, another reality,
Yeah,
another
another
part of
parallel
you?
a parallel dimension where I had blue eyes and the darn laundry still needed to be done. Yeah.
The laundry's not going.
Like,
Yeah. The evils of the universe.
darn
Uh,
you, laundry, curse you.
right? Uh, oh man, yeah. That's yeah. The a God sense of humor.
Well, string theory, I don't know all about it, but seems to, from my understanding, is there's these slices of strings that are parallel, all vibrating at a different frequency. That's what makes them unique, but they're the
Yeah.
same parallel universe. So I need to vibrate if at that universe again to have blue eyes and maybe 10 pounds lighter or 10 years younger. I don't know. But everything
Uh,
else looks the same. So
yeah.
yeah.
So what have you experienced? What have you experienced right thus far through this work in the connection between angels, demons, and extraterrestrials? Do you feel that they are kind of one and the same?
You That's a good question. I'm not sure if I have the answer yet because there is a community that I did kind of bounce this around, and they tend to think that it's the demons projecting, aliens, because that again, that's something that the mainstream has kind of dumped in our unconscious
Yeah.
through movies to throw us off that they aren't really demons.
Mm,
But I have to say I'm still not quite sure. I was trying to feel, I mean, it depends. So if I guess if there's been a soul creator, we are just, in essence, energy with a little bit of material, contrary to what our eyes and our brains like you tap. But if you look under the really powerful microscopes, we're only 5% solid.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
empty space there.
5%, and the rest of us are whatever, energy, vapor. So, it's kind of hard to say, because in that essence, then yes, the disembodied entities would be the angels and demons. You have the light force and the dark force.
Yeah.
But if you flip the narrative and say, well, yeah, aliens created us, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of hard. It's kind
Yeah,
of
because
hard. I haven't.
because when you look at the God in a sense of, Allah God or
Right.
anything, if he's not an earthbound entity and he's from out there, then you would have to say he's extraterrestrial.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And is it an all-knowing, or are they are knowing, just that they don't want us all knowing? Right? I mean, there's
yeah,
the theory that we're on planet Earth to mine minerals and be, the slave planet,
yeah.
which I mean, when you look at the Earth's structure for a millennium, it's kind of like, yes, what brought Earth here? I mean, it necessarily wasn't a big bang. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think so. I think creationism has a little more rooted in the real,
I ju I
because
just I just
Mhm.
read something, I think it was I think it was yesterday. I saw something, I write up from Astrological Society or Astronomical Society or something like that, and they're starting to see that, or show evidence that the Big Bang wasn't necessarily the creation
Mhm.
of the universe, but it was the implosion or explosion of the one just before
Hmm.
ours. It was like the emergence. It was like one door closing and another one opening.
Yeah. And here's another, I think, where the energetic direction is that, there were giants roaming the earth, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
those big monolithic sculptures, and considering that the average human, at least of average size, or even back in that, or even a couple hundred, going 100 years, only lived to 20 or 30 years, and it took
mm,
hundreds and hundreds of years to make those. And
yeah.
recently, somebody had posted a researcher on Noah's Ark, which I love. I've always been fascinated with Noah's Ark. And they believe that they found Noah's wife's tomb that was
Whoa.
18 feet long.
What? Wow.
Giants, giants.
That
Yeah.
reminds me of something too, and I heard this through some anthropological, information and some studies, that not only were they that large, but that was the very first of the human race that did not have webbed feet or
Mm,
fingers.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's giants are in all the mythology, even up in northern New Mexico. If you look at some of the pueblos, the Chaco Canyon.
Oh, yeah, Chaco
Yeah,
Canyon. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They those people took off in a hurry and then tried to go live up in 30, 40 feet, cave
Yeah,
dwellings.
the Anasazi?
The Anastasi, yes.
Yeah.
And there are rumors, and some of the researchers had indicated that the four corners is actually a portal,
Mm,
and you had like the skinwalkers and the giants and the Bigfoots all come through there, and some of them were cannibals,
mm.
and that's what scared the Anastasi to go up in the high
Yeah,
caves.
yeah.
And apparently there was some that were 30 feet or more. Maybe they couldn't go any higher, so they had to take off,
Huh.
because those dwellings, I mean, literally had bread baking, the corn still in the mill. They just disappeared. So that then in case that they had to leave quickly, they didn't have time to think about and plan and gather.
Yeah. Yeah, Gloria Haas chimed in. She said there was a sunken pirate ship that was found off the coast of Florida. It had a stone tomb 20
Mhm.
foot long. Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, if you even in the Old Testament, the why the Israelites didn't want to cross the desert, there was supposedly 40-foot giants that would eat them.
Huh.
You know, that's that's why they didn't really want to cross the desert. They were scared.
Yeah.
You
And look
know,
at, I mean, like even in biblical, David and Goliath,
exactly.
and there was a tribe too. And this is fairly recent. This is just only goes back about 100 years, maybe 100 or 200 years here in the United States. There was a tribe that has said that they encountered and actually befriended this group of giants.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely in Native American and early American history because there is an I know I too bad I can't remember anybody's name of these researchers, but he's the guy who did a documentary on the American pyramids because we have pyramids.
Oh yeah.
We have
Yeah.
pyramids. And when he went to interview the local folklore and did research with the Native Americans, in Ohio and all that, they were like, these things were here before we got here.
Mm.
So, and they talk
Yeah.
about the basically the flesh-eating giants.
Oh.
Yeah, they were eating them. So, yes, I haven't seen any giants, but I did come in back to your original question about demons, angels, and aliens. I did happen to encounter it was about an 8-foot angel.
Yeah.
I write about it in my first book, Touched, where my husband and I had an antique business and it was robbed that day, or it was in planning to be robbed that day. And the person who was doing the robbery pulled out a gun, and next thing I know, he was talking to what I thought was a chandelier.
Huh.
I thought it was a chandelier. I thought because he smelled of alcohol.
Yeah.
He was unstable, mentally foggy. Who knows what other narcotics he had in him? So I thought, well, hey, maybe the drugs kicked in. He's going to put his gun down, and he's talking to the chandelier. I'm kind of good with right?
Yeah.
And
And or
when
yeah,
I
and that,
looked,
or
'cause
yeah.
he was kind of like acknowledging. He wasn't talking, by the way. Apparently, it was something telepathic,
Yeah.
but he was like acknowledging, like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
Hmm.
finally, I go, okay, something's going on here.
Yeah.
See? And I looked up, and then I looked down, and there I saw it.
Oh.
There was a very tall, looks like a green, almost like a chiffon material. No wings, but long white hair that went all the way down to his feet or the back of
Wow.
the hand. And
Huh.
there was an intervention that day.
Hmm.
So the
Almost
guy,
sounds like not necessarily an angel, but kind of like a Palladian or like another race of.
maybe.
Yeah.
Well, what's weird, that wasn't the only encounter
Hmm.
because a couple of weeks later, I guess something was just aiming for me that year. So it's right before Christmas because I'm thinking this was probably November, could have been late October of that year. And I was doing a post office run. When I walked into the post office, there was a gentleman that held the door open for me because I had a bunch of packages that I was sending off from the online store.
Yeah.
When I looked into his eyes, it felt like my veins were replaced with ice water.
Oh.
Clearly a bad sign.
Huh.
Now, I walked into the post office, and this was when I was in LA, and it was one of the main post offices in the San Fernando Valley. So I had a very long lobby, like the road, just hundreds of post office boxes before you got to the lobby.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a stinking long line because it was 2 days before Christmas. And I thought, well, I got to get this stuff out. I'm here. Let's get it done. As the line moved, you get that feeling somebody's watching you. And I looked over my shoulder, and there was that guy locked on to me.
Wow.
I says, yeah, this is a problem. So I decided to request a postal worker come out and walk me to my car. But they're like, lady, and even the custodian is busy tonight. There's nobody walking you out to the car. I said, well, I get that feeling about this guy. And they're like, well, tonight we're not going to be able to accommodate that. So I went into full gear, kind of got my keys ready. I was going to, had a plan of action, but he was gone. Huh. And I thought, well, okay. He got tired of waiting for me. Maybe the long post office line was a good idea.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks later, I found out that he was the Haskell serial killer.
What?
Because the post office was on Haskell. There was in the San Fernando Valley, there's a street called Haskell, and they had named him the Haskell serial killer. That was him.
Whoa.
But to my story about the second encounter was after I found this out that I had a serial killer honing into me, I decided no more nighttime. I think I'm just going to go in the busiest part of the morning, which is right at opening. I went there my next big run, and I was walking through that same long area of post office boxes, and I kept feeling something just brush up against my hand. First was my right hand, and then it was kind of my left hand, and I thought, what the heck? And I looked down, and I saw the green chiffon. And this time, it wasn't just one, it was two, and they were on each side of me.
Wow.
So I was able to look at the faces, and wasn't quite what I expected. They looked like little boy faces with big blue eyes. So maybe they are Palladian. Could be, because it kind of does look like, now that you mention it there, they had the long white hair again.
Yeah, the platinum color hair.
Yeah, the long beard that went all the way down to the floor with the big blue eyes, and they had headbands that matched that light green that they were wearing, and they were on the side of me. Wow. Like my bodyguards.
Huh. Man.
Yeah.
So the let's I'm gonna shift tracks a little bit. So let's see, trying to think, because I got the regular questions. I'm like, there's so much information of what we just went over. It's like, oh my God, I lost track.
Well, now you know why I write memoirs in volumes, sir.
Yeah. Are there any suggestions to those out there that, well, before I even ask this question, because you also have your own podcast.
I do.
And hence on the bottom of the screen that's scrolling there, that's your Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and your YouTube channel. Yes. So for those that want to go check out your podcast, they can go to Leap Into Your Story on any of those networks. Yes. And now hence that with the show that you do, what are some of the suggestions to those that that want to write their own book or their own story with their paranormal experiences?
Yes. Well, first and foremost, you got to move past the fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually, I will tell you as a book coach, fear is going to be the primary factor without the paranormal. But for me, paranormal authors, that's always, especially memoir writers, those are my people, because I can't tell them or promise them that they're going to get some flack for sharing some of their story. I recommend you be true to yourself. And if you feel that your experiences can help just one person, it will be all worth it.
Yeah. 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 And yeah, too, not being afraid to tell your story.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I've come across a lot of people who would come to me to tell their story, and I would be the first person they told because nobody would believe them, even though they never tried telling their story. But they'd come to me to tell their story because, like, this first time I'm talking about this because I know you'd understand.
Yes.
What do you think? I'm going, I believe it. I mean, the stuff that I've experienced. When
And
someone
even,
says, I
yeah.
want to tell you something, this might sound weird. I'm like, nothing is weird.
Especially
Not
if
when
they
you're in
read
this
my
field.
book. Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
go for it. Good luck with that. It's not
Yep.
going to surprise me one bit.
Yep. There's Daniel. Hello, my two peeps. How you doing, Daniel? Thanks for
Yes.
chiming in. And,
Hey, Daniel.
yeah,
And I
awesome.
says, I'm looking at some of the, I see Gloria said hi to me too. Hi, Gloria. But
Yeah.
and that's another thing too, the challenging of belief systems.
Mm.
And you're already going to have enough of your own around you challenging that. But I will share now that Daniel's up here. He's got to hear this. I hope he's listening in. Daniel was a guest on my podcast, and he was sharing some stuff, and he was happy to find me because he found somebody who could get him, especially about that fire hose of information and never being turned off. And of course, I got him to put a little fire under him. He's got his book out too. So
Yeah.
but one of the things he had shared with me was that, because I had told him, and on my Facebook page, you'll see the banner. That's Michael, and you only see a part of it, but he's got his, base, in essence, his foot on the devil's head. So I always left that banner. I always loved that image of Michael. I was sharing how I felt very connected to Archangel Michael, and he goes, "Oh," he goes, "This may shock you," and I'm like, "Go for it!" Right? Part of our conversation, right? And he goes, "Michael's a moose," and I was like, "Huh." But it gets better. So I'm thinking, I'm having a hard time because my belief system says that Michael is a person, right? And
Yeah.
I'm always seeing him in the Roman garb or, something human-like. But when Daniel said that Michael was a moose, I had kind of struggled with that
Yeah.
until one day I saw a sterling moose necklace hanging in my jewelry box. And that was a gift from my husband.
Yeah.
Because I had completely forgot I collect moose. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, Daniel is not wrong, because generally that's not an animal people really connect with. When I got married in Alaska, I saw a moose, and I don't know if you ever seen a moose. They're big animals, but
Enormous.
literally they're about 10 to 12 feet tall with their horns.
Yeah.
So yeah, Daniel, yeah, you were right about the moose. And I was like, holy moly, there it is. I had to reevaluate my own belief system with that, because
Yeah.
who's to say? All I could say is I've been this California girl. have been collecting moose for 20, almost 30 years, moose stuff. And my husband happened to find that moose necklace in the middle of the Southwest.
Oh, wow.
So and then there it was. That was that piece that was kind of the missing puzzle, where I'm like, I have to tell Daniel about the moose and the connection. Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you've got me convinced on that.
Now, even though we did touch on some really crazy stuff, I'm going to throw another question out there. What has been the most extraordinary experience through the years since you've been doing this that has just really just boggled the brain and just shook you, whether it's good or bad? It could be scary or just unusual.
That's a good question. I probably think, again, it goes to challenging belief systems. I've written about this. I know Daniel had shared in his book, because that was I think a one rude awakening that nobody expected, was that the disembodied spirits, contrary to what everybody has preached and you might have heard, they can harm you and even kill you.
Yeah.
I had an incident when I moved into New Mexico, and again, hotbed of stuff, but this house definitely challenged my nerves on this, and my patience and my faith and my trust in myself. When we first moved in, I was so drawn to New Mexico. I was drawn to this house. I think the sellers kind of lied. The reason why they left it and sold it 20,000 below market in second hottest market. But here's even the crazier thing. This house had just been put on the market, and usually the last big frenzy was before the real estate bubble, and they were selling, within hours. And this house had sat a few days. Yeah. And nobody had looked at it. And I mean, it was immaculate. The people in it had just this pristine everything. It had features in it that I was going to do to my house in California. Yeah. I didn't have to. So it just all fell into place. But not too long after I moved here, it was very obvious there was something else in the house, or more than one. I kind of felt it was more than one. I felt like I was being watched. Doors would open up. I got to a point where it was like attacking me. I'd walk by the kitchen cabinet and reach for it, and it would swing and slap me in the face. I had a couple of black eyes. Oh. Same thing with doors. I'd walk through the doorway and the door would slam, and I'd smack my face into the door. Wow. So whatever was in here definitely didn't like me. And it seemed to poke on me. It did one time with my husband, because at this point he's like, this is a whole new crazy I'm not used to with you. Are you? He didn't know what to make out of it, because I kept telling him, I says, I think we need to do some sort of ceremony or exorcist, or get some shaman or priest in here. And
how is it now? How is the energy now? Has it subsided?
It's gotten better. I mean, there are upticks. Today there was crazy stuff with electrical, but but I'll tell you, the rude awakening was definitely moving, not just in Mexico, this house being beaten up by your house. And then the finale that really just set me off was that there was a knife that I was using to cook. I was preparing dinner, set it aside on the cutting board, and it started to bounce. And it just started to bounce out of nowhere. And then it bounced off the cutting board, hit the countertop, hit the floor. And I thought, all right, your little parlor trick. You got my attention. I ignored it, right? Because again, the belief system is don't feed the energy, right? Don't feed it. So I tried not to feed it, that whatever SOB picked up that knife, and I looked down because it was bouncing on the floor now all by
Yeah.
itself, and it stopped and it started to bounce. It was like an invisible hand picked that knife up and cut my ankle and then dropped the knife.
Huh.
I could not reconcile that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I saw blood dripping down my ankle bone where I was like, snap out of it. You got to take action.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ever since that, it was like, you know what? I'm not sending it love. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to let them know you don't play around with this gal.
Yeah. Yeah. You
But
got to regain your own power back, and you have
yes,
control.
exactly.
Yeah. Taking control of the situation. Say, you're not
Exactly.
welcome. It's
Yes.
basically doing your own exorcism.
Pretty
Is
much.
that something that you have you done that, or is something that you
It's
consider doing?
actually an ongoing thing. And I picked up an EMF reader too to see if that there's still something in here, but it's been minimized.
Yeah.
And I will tell you though, December is notorious for uptick in behavior.
Mm.
So I try to plan all my homebound activities at home. Even when I was working, I for company, outside of the home. Of course, now I work at home, but I had always tried to plan what I call the corridor, and it kind of starts right about now. So the electrical issue wasn't that big of a surprise because kind of like this, the 12 days of Christmas, it runs about 20 days, 20 days in this house from like sometimes it could pick up a little early, like the 1st of December, which I think it did. It started a little bit and then I nipped it and then it kind of came up again. So we'll see. But December, there's definitely an uptick in it. And I have to kind of be guarded and try to keep it under wraps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Usually the time between, the Halloween season or Halloween season, that's where the veil starts to get thinner.
Yeah.
And then into the end of the year.
Mhm.
Because I feel the difference in the energy. I mean, I was born in the wintertime. I think I was actually born during a snowstorm. I don't remember. Or why would I? But
We're there. No.
yeah, it's like when fall comes, no matter where you are, I can feel the energy change. It's much thinner. The veil is a lot thinner.
Well, if you notice, it's kind of like the rest of the place, depending on where you are. But I noticed with me, in New Mexico at least, that you get the 4 seasons. And California, everything's kind of even killed. The leaves don't change color a whole lot. They definitely don't fall off the tree. New Mexico, 4 seasons, and you just see like the environment going to a death.
Yeah.
The leaves start to fall off and the trees everything looks dead. So for me, not only energetically but visually, it's kind of like the suppression of the 3D world and the increase of the unseen world.
Yeah. It's almost like not. It's like for those who live in the tropical climates. I mean, Florida being subtropical, but when you really are in a tropical, it's not fair for those people who do not see the mortality of nature. You lose that mortality,
True.
that feeling of mortality. So,
but then on the flip side of that, I will tell you that I really struggle to be productive year round. When you don't see the mortality and everything's lively around you, you have a different pace too.
Yeah. Kind of like laziness.
Wow.
The further south you go, the further south or closer to the equator.
I don't even know that word. It's kind of like I'm deathly ill and I'm still must do that. must do that. Feel
Yeah.
terrible, but must do that.
I think that's why it takes forever to get stuff done in Florida, especially when it comes to the government or like DOT when they're doing a road project or something like that. It just seems like it takes forever.
Oh,
10
you
years
know
to do a highway. I'm like, really?
what?
Come on.
Well, California was like that too.
Yeah.
And it's funny because New Mexico has labor shortages. It's really hard to, even before the pandemic. So
Wow.
there's the manana factor. But I will say they actually do pretty quick compared to California.
Huh.
And that's where I don't see the humming and pacing of productivity.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
in government projects. That just might be government projects, though.
Yeah. Slows stuff down.
Well, somebody
Um,
gotta keep in, accruing interest. You know how that works, so,
yep.
yeah.
Yep. Um, so what have you learned thus far with this whole experience of life thus far within the paranormal realm? What have you learned thus far? What has it told you
Well,
about it?
I think, again, it goes back to changing belief systems and being flexible, but also understanding that you're not gonna get rid of the darkness,
Mm,
and the darkness knows you're not gonna get rid of the lightness. They can try to dim the light.
yeah.
um I with all I also study qigong, and I've
Mm,
had the opportunity to be under chi masters. And again, the belief system is you have to be all spiritual and be tapped in. Well, I had an interesting aura reading by my chi master. Now everything's high tech. You used to have the, what do you call it, the Carillion cameras, or you had people
yeah.
read auras. Now it's all high tech. You can actually put your hand into machines and they give you the reading. And a couple years ago, for helping out, he says, we're going to go ahead and honor a free reading for you. Well, I had the most prettiest aura with the blue and the aqua green and the little touch of the magenta. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this looks good, right? This looks good. And the chi master, he goes, you're too much in the spiritual.
Mm,
He flat out said, you're too much in the, and I'm like, isn't that what the whole goal is to be? To be in the
yeah.
higher? And he goes,
Higher
mm-mm.
frequencies.
He says the true spiritual master is just that. You can master the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies.
Yeah.
And he says that I needed to get more basically more in touch with your dark side,
Mm,
in essence, because let's face it, if you get hit with something traumatic, your light side isn't going to go, I'm going to think positive, I'm going to change.
mm,
Your dark side needs to come in and be ready, to defend your life or whatever. And you need to be okay with that. You need to be in touch with your inner dark side, because a true spiritual journey honors the whole, all of you,
yeah.
the light and the dark. So don't always try to be a good person. Sometimes you kind of have to, as I call it, be at one with your inner bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
set boundaries. That's called boundaries.
Yeah.
Called
Yeah.
boundaries with people. And
Establishing your own boundaries.
yes,
Um, it get regaining your own power back. That's one of the main
exactly,
metaphysical principles.
exactly.
Um,
And and stand hold of your truth. Honor your inner radar,
yeah.
regardless of what you think the consequences might be, because
Yeah.
ultimately at the end of the day you owe it to yourself. You really do. um,
Mhm.
it's your journey, your path, and if people don't like it, well, tell them to back off.
Yeah.
Tell them to back off, and listen. You need to, and that inner that inner voice needs to be heard, and that's what the paranormal, I think, is trying to awaken. I mean, even with all these dark entities and stuff, they really taught me a lot about myself. I didn't like them. Yeah, I didn't like getting a black eye, but it got my attention to start searching in a right direction.
Yeah. Searching
Instead of
inward.
rehashing old,
Yeah.
outdated paradigms and belief systems, it really got me
Yeah.
searching.
And it also begs a thought too, and I very rarely say this, but this show tonight definitely deserves it. But we all grew up, as we were children, we were always told, we always thought about the boogeyman under the bed or in the closet and stuff like that. And then as we get older, our parents are always telling us, "Oh, there's no boogeyman under the bed. There's no boogeyman in the closet." Well, the reality is, yes, there is that boogeyman under the bed or in the closet.
Yeah, it's possible. It's
Yeah.
very possible. That reminds me of an incident that I had with a Facebook person who he was led to me. I thought he was nuts,
Yeah.
but he was tormented, and he said he was led to me, being that I was the only person that could help him. And I'm like, I think you got me confused. It took like 3-4 months, and I'm like, no, this guy's obviously got mental issues, and but you know what? I decided to give him a chance.
Yeah.
I said, tell me your story. Because, that's the name of my business, the name of my leap into your story. It was more like he had to crawl into it with me, but I let him leap. And when we had a chat through the messenger, I realized he was pretty legit.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things that I learned, especially about mental health, is this guy. He said he was mentally ill, and he'd been clinically diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh. We may have ran into the same person.
Really?
Yeah, because
But
this was
yeah.
years ago too, when
This is about 10 years ago, maybe
it
a
might,
little bit longer.
yeah.
Could
I mean,
be.
because this guy reached out when I was doing paranormal investigation, and he's like, "Yeah, there's a demon following me," blah, blah. So I met up at the apartment that he was at, and it was just really weird. The apartment was completely empty. No
Wow.
furniture, no
Yeah,
nothing.
they can't
Everything
have
white.
anything. Yeah, they can't have anything around them. They're
Yeah.
too afraid. But this guy was in Germany, so I don't think it was.
No,
But
yeah.
but one of the things that he was hell bent on is he hated Americans and he hated women.
Huh.
He could not believe, because I on you see my VYKTOR, that's my
Yeah.
artist name.
Oh,
So
okay.
he thought I was Russian or when he saw Andersen. And when I told him that I was an American woman and Anderson is my married name, he's like, you're married. I hate married people.
Ah. Oh, man.
So, and I'm like, well, there it is, bud. I don't know if God led you to me. He led you to all the 3 areas you hate. You still want to chat with me? And he's like, yeah, I'm desperate.
Wow.
I will put aside all my hatred. And he goes, because I was been led to you. And one of the things that he disclosed was that he said he was all in all this heavy medication. And I
Wow.
says, well, does it help? He says, no. He goes, it just suppresses it enough so I try not to care, but I still feel it all.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. So I knew some Canadian healthcare people, and I bounced that to them to say, hey, maybe we need to go back to ancient traditions and find out a little bit more about the thinning of the veil, because maybe that's why the mental health is not getting better. We're just
Oh
suppressing
yeah. Yeah.
um,
We're
things.
suppressing it, and our diet's not helping either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And she says, I've had a theory about that for a while, and I did try to run it up to the right places, and it was quickly shut down,
Ooh.
quickly, and was warned that she's to never bring that up again unless her license would be in jeopardy.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder how many healthcare professionals out there in the mental health area know about this, but they're quickly shut down too.
Huh. Do you see a little bit of a change? Do you see any practitioners kind of like moving away from the general practice and going into the
I will
metaphysical?
tell you, I do. That is probably one of the greatest silver linings of this pandemic for the last 2 years, and the requirements,
Yeah.
um, because they're like, well, hey, I don't have to answer to anybody. I could start my own maybe practice. And I can tell you in my qigong classes, I would go in the morning, and about half of that class in the morning were all retired nurses. And they will testify that there's really not a whole lot of care in the healthcare business.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
in their off time, they would be exploring, holistic means
Yeah.
uh, for their
Natural.
ailments and people they knew.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the shift. I'm seeing it everywhere too.
Hmm.
There's a shift in the paradigm of
Yeah,
medicine. We're going
yeah.
back to tradition.
We want to be in, let's call it healthy earth
Hmm.
instead of light, but let's call it healthy earth, because that's really what people crave. They want healthy people, they want healthy finances, healthy relationships. And I think understanding that, there's more out there um, than we know, and than what we're allowed to know. And gotta find it. You have to search pretty hard for some of it, but
Yeah.
it's out there. Mhm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, since we are just moments past our time, which doesn't really matter. However, before we end the show, is there anything specifically as a takeaway for our audience that you want to deliver?
I just want everybody to honor themselves, set up the necessary boundaries to do that, because your past, present, and future self will appreciate that.
Absolutely. Definitely. Cool. Well, Victoria, it's been a pleasure and it's an honor to have you on the show tonight. And
Likewise.
welcome back anytime.
All right.
Yeah, if got another book coming out or something that
I
you want to touch
do.
base on and let everybody know about it.
Fourth, yeah, fourth memoir on the way.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So for any of our listeners or viewers tonight, or which will eventually watch the show if you missed it, you can go to her. Let me go back to here. It's the captions here. Yeah. Leap into Your Story, which is on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the YouTube channel. So
Yeah,
awesome.
very good. Been a
Cool.
pleasure.
Thank you again, Victoria. You have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And thank you, everybody, for chiming into Conscious Radio Network's The Weekly Seance. And until next time, I will see you next Monday. Can you hear me? What happened here? All right. There we go. It's still showing that I am on the air still, which is weird. Huh. Interesting. Well, just in case,
Okay.
I am signing off.
Okay. Well, it's been a great pleasure.
Same here, Victoria. And you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday, Christmas holiday, and a happy New Year.
Thank you. You as well. Take good
Thank
care.
you. You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.